Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Breakfast with Blaha. And today, having that free Greek yogurt, frozen cherries, almond butter. All right, let's talk a little bit about rotating our max effort lifts on the conjugate system and why we do it. Again, it's a training method I promote here. And one of the things that people notice is that around 5% of our training is done with 1 rep maxes, right? So I do it. You guys see training vlogs of my clients who do it. You guys remember Mikey's vlogs. Antonio has his vlogs up on his channel, who again took gold at nationals not long ago. We do different max effort lifts, usually 1 upper, 1 lower every week, and then some people do a little bit more. But the baseline is 1 upper, 1 lower lift. And one of the things that gets noticed is that we seem to do random lifts. We do random lifts. And part of that we know is done for psychological reasons. It's to program you to PR all the time, right? Because if you don't do a lift very often, you do it once every 6 weeks, every 12 weeks, every 16 weeks, whatever it happens to be, in theory, you should have gotten stronger, so you're going to PR on it again, all right? It programs you to be in the mindset of PRing every time you max once you get into the flow of this system. And it works as long as you haven't dealt with injuries, serious cutting, stuff like that. That's part of it. Another big part of it is to learn to get strong at every angle, right? So we can learn to just blast through lifts when they get out of their groove, when they get a little catawampus. To sound very Texan there. But that's not the only reasons that we do it. Another big part of it is injury prevention. One of the things that people don't like, they'll say, well, you shouldn't be maxing year-round, right? Shouldn't do it. People get hurt. And that's, again, an issue with the Bulgarian system. And that's one of the things that I noticed when I ran Bulgarian. You start to get muscle pulls and things. You start to get hurt easier, get overused real quick as you're maxing on the same stuff over and over and over and over. All right, in the case of conjugate, we are not doing that. And that is how people get hurt on maxes. It's overuse just like anything else. People have this idea, oh, you get hurt because you're lifting heavy. That's ludicrous. The evidence does not support that, right? People tear biceps doing preacher curls all the time. Weighted chins for higher reps sometimes. People get injured from overuse, not about lifting heavy weight. Especially if you ramped up, like we do. So on conjugate, we ramp up to a 1 rep max. You're not just walking in and just saying, oh, I'm just going to throw 100 pounds more on the bar. You don't go straight from 400 to 500 when your max is close to 500. All right, we're building up to it. But what we are doing is we are learning to get tight and stay in our groove as we get up to that lift. Okay, staying tight on a heavy single is one of the best ways to not get hurt. So since we're having to find our groove, we're a little uncertain on each lift as we ramp up, we're having to put extra focus into staying tight. But also another big deal is that by rotating the movement, we change the stress week to week on the joints. Even say your bench press, you're changing the grip every time. I'd be changing the range of motion. All right, someone who doesn't have bands change all that. Bands and chains are great. Why? They unload us at the point where we have the most tension. That point where we have the highest risk of overuse. We want to get that for our hypertrophy work. But then even then we rotate that, don't we? Rotate it around. But on those, we're slightly unloading the point where we have the highest risk of injury on a lot of these lifts, making it a hair lighter, but still pushing heavy weight because then by the end of the lockout, we're having to handle more weight. Bands and chains are really helpful here. But even if we don't have those, right, by changing our grip, we change our grip, what happens? Changing the stress. And if we do that, again, while handling maximum weights, our inflammation Where we get little micro tears in the tendons and things changes week to week. It cuts our chance of overuse. But even on the bench, let's say you only have one bar. Well, we can do different grips. You can do up to 5 different grip widths. It's a different exercise. That's a different max. You can go off of pins. You can do longer pauses and count that as a max, right? Forcing a 2-second or a 3-second pause. It's a different exercise than a 1-count pause. You can do floor presses. So you've got different tools there. It gives us a different max. Same thing with the box squatting. Obviously if we have different bars, we're really good to go. You can change the height. If you're squatting from a different height, it changes the point where the peak tension is put upon the tendon. You can change the stance. You can go from a shoulder width to an ultra wide. You can even do a medium. You have 3 different stances that you use on a box squat to max on. Change the stimulus. Deadlifts, we have all these options. We have sumo, conventional. We can do snatch grip pulls, deficit pulls, pulls off blocks. And a lot of these can apply to these different lifts, right? Even just having 1-inch wooden blocks or plates or whatever to stand on or put plates on lets us take each deadlift and make it into 3 different ones. That 1-inch change, which is for those who don't use Freedom units, about 2.5 centimeters. Okay. You can deadlift off a 1-inch deficit, you can pull off 1-inch blocks, change the range of motion 1 inch. Sumo, we can do the same thing. Technically, you can go to a snatch grip and do the same thing. It's 9 different exercises. Pull off of pins. By changing through these different movements, we change where the stress is. And definitely going sumo to conventional, back and forth, we completely change where the stress is placed in the body. Okay. We do not get overuse while lifting nearly maximum weights. An extremely valuable tool for avoiding injury while letting us lift very, very heavy. Because 1 rep maxing itself is a skill. And it's a skill that involves things like intramuscular coordination. It's not always lift specific. In other words, all 9 of those little short deadlift variations I listed all teach you still how to pull with maximum force off the floor. Okay, they teach you to exert maximum force, and in that case, guess what? It's going to make you better at maxing. But we're changing the lifts. We're changing the lifts around, and we're doing so in such a way that we can avoid overuse injuries. And therefore, we can max out every week without the same risks. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.